Inflation is one of the most important concepts in economics, as it affects nearly every aspect of a nation's economy, from the prices of everyday goods and services to wages, interest rates, and economic policies. Simply put, inflation refers to the general increase in prices over time, reducing the purchasing power of money. While inflation is a normal part of a growing economy, understanding how it works and how it impacts both individuals and businesses is crucial for making informed financial decisions. This article will explain what inflation is, what causes it, and how it is measured, as well as its effects on the economy. Inflation is the rate at which the general price level of goods and services rises over a period of time, resulting in the decline of purchasing power. For example, if the inflation rate is 3% annually, something that cost $100 last year will cost $103 this year. As prices rise, the same amount of money buys fewer goods and services, meaning consumers need more money to maintain the same standard of living. A moderate amount of inflation is considered normal and even healthy for an economy, as it encourages spending and investment rather than hoarding money. However, excessive inflation, known as hyperinflation, or extremely low inflation, known as deflation, can be damaging to an economy. Inflation can be caused by various factors, but the two primary types of inflation are demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. Demand pull inflation occurs when the demand for goods and services exceeds the supply. This can happen when consumers have more disposable income or when the economy is growing quickly. As demand increases, businesses raise prices because they know people are willing to pay more. In this scenario, inflation is driven by high consumer spending, low unemployment, and economic expansion. For example, if an economy experiences rapid growth and more people have jobs and higher incomes, they will spend more money on goods and services. This increased demand can push up prices, leading to inflation. Cost push inflation occurs when the cost of production rises, causing businesses to increase prices to maintain profit margins. This can happen due to rising costs for raw materials, labor, or energy. For instance, if oil prices surge, transportation and production costs increase for many industries, leading to higher prices for goods and services. Supply chain disruptions, natural disasters, or shortages of key materials can also lead to cost-push inflation. In this case, inflation is driven by higher costs on the supply side rather than increased demand from consumers. Another factor contributing to inflation is built-in inflation, which occurs when businesses raise wages to match rising prices, leading to a cycle where higher wages result in higher costs for goods and services, and so on. This phenomenon is often referred to as a wage price spiral. Inflation is typically measured by tracking the prices of a basket of goods and services over time. The most common measures of inflation are the Consumer Price Index, CPI, and the Producer Price Index, PPI. Consumer Price Index, CPI. The CPI measures the average change in prices that consumers pay for a basket of goods and services, including food, housing, clothing, transportation, and healthcare. It is one of the most widely used indicators of inflation, as it reflects the price changes experienced by households. Producer Price Index, PPI. The PPI tracks changes in the prices businesses pay for raw materials and wholesale goods. It measures inflation at the production level, providing insights into future consumer inflation, as higher production costs often lead to higher retail prices. Both CPI and PPI are calculated and published regularly by government agencies, and they serve as critical tools for policymakers, economists, and investors in understanding inflation trends. Effects of inflation. Inflation has both positive and negative effects on the economy, depending on its rate and stability. Moderate inflation can stimulate economic growth, but high inflation or hyperinflation can cause serious problems. Reduced purchasing power. The most immediate effect of inflation is the erosion of purchasing power. As prices rise, consumers need more money to buy the same goods and services, which can lead to lower living standards, especially if wages do not keep pace with inflation. Impact on savings. Inflation can erode the value of savings. For example, if the inflation rate is higher than the interest rate on savings accounts, the real value of savings decreases over time. In other words, even though the nominal amount in the account may grow, the purchasing power of that money declines. Interest rates. Central banks, such as the Federal Reserve in the United States, use monetary policy to control inflation. When inflation rises, central banks often raise interest rates to slow down borrowing and spending, which can help cool off an overheated economy. Conversely, when inflation is too low, central banks may lower interest rates to encourage borrowing and investment. Wage pressure. Inflation can lead to wage pressure as workers demand higher wages to keep up with rising living costs. However, businesses may struggle to meet these demands without raising prices further, potentially leading to a wage price spiral. Effect on borrowing and lending. Inflation can be beneficial for borrowers because they repay loans with money that is worth less than when they originally borrowed it. However, lenders may lose out if inflation rises above the interest rates on loans, as the real value of the repayments they receive decreases. Conclusion. Inflation is a complex economic phenomenon with wide-ranging effects on consumers, businesses, and the overall economy. While moderate inflation is often a sign of a healthy economy, extreme inflation can lead to economic instability.